Hello everyone, this is Shalom and I am a Singaporean jet that's based in Osaka City, Mie Prefecture. So the reason I'm making this video is because there are some of my friends and the people around me who are interested in what the jet program is about. So I wanted to make this video because when I was researching and applying for the program, most of the information I found online was catered to US and UK participants. So this is my very humble attempt to share my experiences as a successful jet applicant from Singapore. I'll share more bits and pieces of my story as I go along, but let's talk about what we're going to cover in today's video. So this video is going to be split into three major sections. Number one, what is jet? And how is the experience for me so far? Number two, who is jet looking for and are you a suitable candidate? And number three will be more technical. It will be about the application process and timeline of what goes on before you get selected for the jet program. Yeah, so I'll put some timestamps down below so you can skip to the section that's relevant to you. Enjoy watching! So, what is JET? As you know, JET stands for the Japan Exchange and Teaching Program. So, as many senpais like to tell us, the exchange comes before the teaching. So, what that means is that first and foremost, JET participants are going to be ambassadors of their countries. So, there are two types of JET participants, and I'm going to tell you what I know of these roles based on my experience so far. That goes beyond what you might see on the JET website. Okay, so let's go. Now, most of us will end up as ALTs or assistant language teachers, teachers of English, of course. And the assistant part is quite serious, as in you're not supposed to take over anyone's lessons. You're supposed to be a team teacher or team teaching with the Japanese teachers of English or JTEs. And surprisingly, there is actually no Japanese necessary for this role. And I have friends, other Singaporeans who came in with absolutely none. They couldn't even read hiragana or katakana, and they're fine. So what your role is actually in the classroom, you're supposed to provide a native English speaking voice. So they actually don't want you to use Japanese because the students will become reliant on your translations or waiting for your instructions in Japanese, which is not what they want. They want you to help train their listening skills, so absolutely no Japanese is necessary. But of course, it's good to have some to bond with your colleagues at your school. Yeah, okay. So next is that having some sort of English background is a bonus, but again, it's not necessary. So some people who are linguistic majors, English lit majors, or people with certificates in English teaching as a second language, those tend to have a plus in the interview process because they do ask you questions about how are you going to teach this and that, but I'll get into that later. So, but the most important thing is they must be able to see your passion to teach and willingness to engage with youth. Okay, so let's go on to CIRs, which are the minority, the rare Pokemon in the JET participants. So CIR stands for Coordinator of International Relations, and you must be highly proficient in Japanese, N1 or N2 level. And in fact, many CIRs comment that even N1 or N2 level is a struggle for them when people speak in native Japanese or when you go to a different location, because most of us learn Tokyo-based Japanese, but sometimes people use certain dialects and they might not catch all the meanings. So yeah, Japanese is definitely needed for this role. So CIRs usually work in the city hall to coordinate cross-language events and cross-language administrative work. So example, my friend in Matsusaka, he is helping with translation work for small businesses around here to create pamphlets in English and Chinese so that he can help promote local tourism. So that's kind of what the CIR role is about. Of course, it can differ greatly, and some CIRs have already appeared on the news, in the televisions for like major translation events. So essentially, that's what the ALTs and CIRs do. So your role is really to promote cultural exchange and be that gaijin, that foreigner in the local communities. So next, let's talk about who Jet is looking for, and I will give you my opinion based on of course, the criteria that they have stated out, but also my observations of the other successful Jet applicants from Singapore. So the first one, which is the only mandatory criteria, is that you have to be a graduate. And actually, fresh grads are more than welcome. Fresh grads, as in there are 2 participants in our batch this year that literally just graduated in July. So they departed in August and they graduated in July. So at the time of the application, they didn't even have their university transcripts yet. But it was projected that, of course, they will be able to pass. So they were still given a conditional offer. So I think that's pretty cool. They were both English lit graduates though. So I'll come to that a bit later. I think what makes a candidate stand out is, of course, teaching experience. And you don't even have to be an MOE teacher for this, although I was. But there are plenty of other people who, let's say, did part-time tutoring, or they had some volunteering events at maybe a preschool. All of those are acceptable as teaching experience, okay? Because facing a class of 40 human beings at the same time is something that can be very daunting. So anyone who has teaching experience immediately kind of crosses a lot of barriers for them, because they know you are able to hold your ground, or you have experience in holding your ground. So that's definitely a plus. And then number 3 is English fluency, or any background related to English teaching or the learning of English. And if you have that, definitely put that down in your statement of purpose. So not only that, in your statement of purpose, they are actually also looking out for your writing skills. So if your essay isn't that great, or there are a lot of grammatical errors, I think you will be self-eliminating. So watch out for that. Okay, and number 4, which is also briefly stated, but overseas living experience is definitely a plus. So for myself, I have lived in Holland for exchange, like many other people have, for half a year. And some of the other Singaporean applicants did some study abroad programs in Japan or wherever, and that's what they're looking out for as well, because they need to ensure that the people they select are able to live alone. Even if you can tell your friends and family back home, no one is there to help you actually solve the problem. So being able to cope with that is very important. And of course, the infamous Japanese work culture, it differs from region to region. It's definitely worse in places like Tokyo. But there are a lot of hidden rules. We say Japan is a high context society. You need to learn to read the room. So all these things take getting used to. So they want to see someone who is adaptable and flexible. So if you can mention this somehow in with examples in your statement of purpose, that'll be great. Next thing, any other skills or talents that you have, you should definitely talk about them, because it helps you stand out from everyone else who is just here for a teaching job. So what is it about you that makes you great for this role, that you can contribute more to this role? So for me, I came in with a science background, as in I was already a science teacher with a biology degree. So I told them, other than just teaching English, I can teach science in English. I can help the teachers develop a curriculum that can help students to, who want to venture overseas for other educational opportunities. So I told them I can definitely do that. And I also told them that I had a lot of experience in the performing arts and music, so this was also a method for me to promote cross-cultural exchange. And of course, in my statement of purpose, I gave plenty of examples. And I honestly think this is very important because guess what? I got posted to, this is going to sound like it's fake, but it's a super science high school, or SSHS. I guess you could think of it a bit like NUS High, but they are nationally recognized schools in Japan that help students develop research skills and stuff like that. So from the moment I entered here, the principal was like, yeah, go ahead, teach bio in English. We're gonna love that. Go and join all the bio classes. So I was super happy that I was able to do what I loved here, on top of being able to teach English. So they do read your statement of purpose and they do take it into consideration wherever possible. So if you have a strength, make it known, and you might find yourself doing something that you really, really love on top of the teaching. So there will be a test during the interview about your Japanese ability, but it's okay to completely flunk it. Something like that, and it increases in difficulty. I'll make another video about interview prep and the questions I got, but for now, just know that they will actually check off on the list, like how many levels can this candidate go before they completely wakarimasen. I don't understand. So that's just about it. And even if you can't answer a single question, you can still get through. So I think Japanese ability is really the last thing that they're looking for, unless you're looking for a CIR role, in which case you definitely need proof of N1 or N2 ability. Okay, so we're on to the last section of this video. I know it's already becoming too long, so let's keep it short. I'm going to tell you about the application process and timeline based on the emails I received over the last year and what I pieced together from all of that. So right now it's September 2022, the application has begun. Make sure you spend this time until November to get your documents in order. There is no priority, I think, in submitting early, so just make sure everything is complete before you submit. That's the most important. So after the deadline closes in November, there's a long waiting period until January, where if you are shortlisted, you will get an interview notice and an interview voucher in your email, which you then have to print and bring to the embassy for your interview. And I will make a separate video for the interview because there's too many things going on there. But after your interview, there's another long waiting game. As you can tell, January to April. So this is a game of patience, right? And I got my email on 1st April 2022. So I really thought it was an April Fool's joke. But anyway, after you get your shortlist notice, this is when you know you've passed your interview. And some people will be put on the waiting list, which means that you only get to go if somebody on the main list gives up their spot. Yeah. So just be aware that this can happen to you. Anyway, if you are shortlisted like I was, you need to get ready a few documents, namely the certificate of clearance, which is you pay $55 to the SPF and apply with your SingPass to get a cert that proves you're not a criminal. So I paid $55 to get a blank piece of paper. Yes. Anyway, after that, you have to do your certificate of health form. And this one requires you to go to a clinic somewhere and pay for your own health checkup. And this can range from $75 to $200+ depending on who you go to. If you're an MOE teacher, this is subsidized. Just letting you know, you can use your annual health screening for this. And finally, your jet accident insurance form, which you only have to submit after the embassy gives you your jet number. And these are the key things. Oh, there's also a reply form, but that one is very simple. Okay, and then from April to June, you would think that things are going to start rolling. No, you don't know anything. And June is when you get your placement notification. Now, this can vary. So, placement can either mean prefectural or municipal placements. So, for me, I got a prefectural placement. I was told I was placed in Mie Prefecture, which is a huge area of land, right? And some people, example, my friend, got placed into Sendai City. And that's more specific. So what's the difference? So usually people who are placed in a prefecture level, they are going to senior high schools. And that's because the senior high schools are all managed centrally by the prefectures. Whereas if you're going to elementary school or junior high schools, those are managed by individual cities. So depending on who your employer is, whether it's the prefecture or the city, you can already guess which level you're about to teach. Yeah, so that's that. And then again in June or July for me, that was when we get our final placements. That means your school will contact you and let you know exactly which city you're going to. Sometimes they don't tell you your school, so just be aware that you can get very broken information, and that's where some of the anxiety can come in. But it's okay, we all got through it. It'll be fine. And then the contracting organization, which we call CO, again, this is either your prefecture or the city hall will contact you to give you more information about your contract. And then if all goes well, you're supposed to depart at the end of July. So this is the time where, depending on COVID regulations, you might need to do a PCR. You have to submit your passport at the embassy to get your work visa approved. And you'll go for briefings at the embassy or Japan Creative Center. For my batch, the departure was delayed due to some problems. We only departed 14th August. Which is not a problem for me actually. We get to skip the worst of Japanese summers, so that's fine. Okay, so now which is the thing that I guess you guys are worried about, which is the application documents themselves. So I'm gonna zoom in onto the parts where people have questions. So the first one, of course, is the statement of purpose. Now I have 2 tips for you. One is to make it personal but not intimate. So by all means, use your own stories. Don't just write a general statement, but please don't overshare, like go into details about some trauma. That's not going to be helpful to you. And next thing is to structure either your thoughts or your essay in these 2 directions, which is why Jet and why you. So why Jet means, why did you choose Japan? What are your personal reasons for wanting to go to Japan? Why not another country? And what can Jet give you? And also, why you? I think this is the more important part, of course. So what talents do you have beyond being able to teach? Any experiences that are notable? What will you do with your experience on Jet? So I said I'm going to bring my understanding and observations of how they conduct character education in Japan and bring that back to Singapore. So make it about you, your own reasons. Everybody has different reasons. If you want to ask more specific questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. Okay, next, academic transcripts. It's very confusing because they say they want the original cert, but then of course you're not going to send your original cert because it's not coming back to you. So I would recommend just doing 5 copies of the certs, preferably in color. That's close to the original. Yeah, and that's all you need to do. And next, application form. What you need to do here is honestly declare medical conditions. Please write a little bit of details about overseas living experiences, if any, and also importantly your preferences for your posting. It's not guaranteed that they'll take it into consideration, but it's still worth a try. And next, statement of physician. You should declare any mental illnesses if you have them, and this is not going to be working against you as long as you're in a stable condition. As someone who is on antidepressants myself for the long term, so as long as you're stable and you can prove with the doctor's note that you're stable, it's fine. Mild physical conditions, as in it's not going to work against you or prevent you from doing your job, it's also fine. I have a blood condition and I just can't do strenuous physical activities, and that's okay. But if you are in acute or active state of pain, or you need very specific medications that are not found in Japan, then they might not be able to accept you for it. But again, please be honest in all of these application forms, because if you are found to be dishonest, then you're automatically disqualified. Okay, and the last thing is the recommendation letter. And I think people are worried about this because who is going to write it for you? Who is a good person to ask, and what should they talk about? So for me, I feel that it's important to get a colleague, or if you're a student, someone you have worked with in a professional capacity, because they should be able to give brief examples of what kind of team player you are or how you handle yourself professionally. Please do not ask your friends or family to do so. That will just be invalidated. So for me, I asked a colleague that I worked with in my CCA, and then I also asked my Japanese friend, which I think is a bonus because they can write in Japanese and kind of testify to your enthusiasm for getting to know Japanese people and Japanese culture. And then as for the contents, I think they should talk about your work ethic. They should talk about your willingness to educate, and maybe testify to your talents or other strengths if you have mentioned them in your statement of purpose. And we know recommendation letters are usually supposed to be sealed, but because you have to scan copies to give to the embassy anyway, so don't worry about reading the recommendation letter, it's fine. Alright, so I do not want to drag this video any further because it's going to be a monster. But again, if you need any help, just feel free to comment down below and I'll try to answer your questions as best as I can. If you would like more regular updates about what goes on in my life in Matsuzaka, feel free to follow my Instagram at shalom.nippon. So I make just very simple reels documenting my daily life. It's a very simple life and I'm very, very happy to be where I am. So you can kind of get a sense of where I am, and where I am is the good place. So if you are a potential JET participant, I wish you all the best and I hope to see you soon as a senpai. Bye bye!